One day, my mother-in-law suddenly told me, "You're going to take care of your father-in-law for the rest of your life. I'm going to live with my new daughter-in-law." I was shocked. Basically, she was saying that my husband was having an affair, and she was supporting it. She even planned to live at the mistress' house. At my in-laws' home, my father-in-law was in a wheelchair and needed constant care. Even knowing this, my husband and his mother still left to live with the other woman. What they did was unforgivable, but I felt torn and didn't want to abandon my father-in-law. Just when I couldn't decide what to do, my father-in-law finally stood up for himself. "Let me introduce myself. My name is Linda, and I'm 30 years old. I married my husband, Bob, and we've been together for almost 3 years. In the beginning, we got along great, but lately, we don't talk much. Maybe this is what they call getting too comfortable. The more you know someone, the more your relationship becomes steady, and you end up wanting a more stable life." Our married life was fine, but it felt boring. About a year ago, Bob's job got busier. He started working overtime and going on business trips a few times a month, which never happened before. He always made sure to cover the living expenses, and I had a job too, so I didn't worry too much. Sometimes when he came home early, we would have dinner together and catch up. From the outside, it might look like our marriage was cooling down, but that's not true. This was just our usual way of living. But then, one day, everything changed when I got home from work. When I got home, my husband was already there. This was strange because he usually doesn't get home until after 10 p.m. But it was only 7 p.m. He greeted me with, "Welcome back." I replied, "Bob, you're home early today. Weren't you supposed to work late?" But he quickly said, "That's not important right now. My dad had an accident and is in the hospital." "Wait, your father?" I was shocked. He explained that his father got into an accident on his way to work. A car ran a red light and hit him. Thankfully, he wasn't fatally injured, but the accident left him paralyzed in both legs and one arm. He would now need a wheelchair for the rest of his life. My father-in-law had an accident. You've got to be kidding. I couldn't believe it. My father-in-law loved outdoor activities like hiking and fishing. He often took me and my husband on trips and treated me like his own daughter. He'd always say, "If you ever have any problems, feel free to rely on me." Now, to think that his wheelchair-bounded was just too heartbreaking. My father-in-law ran his own company, while my husband worked for a different one, so we weren't notified about the accident right away. We only found out when my mother-in-law called us. Because of this situation, we couldn't visit him as often as we wanted, which was frustrating. With a serious look, my husband started talking. "Linda, Mom asked me to do something about Dad." I asked, "What did your mom want?" "She's wondering if we can't help take care of Dad." "Take care of your father?" "Yeah, Mom's getting older, so it's becoming hard for her to do it all by herself. She wants us to move in to help out." "So, you mean we'd have to live at your parents' house?" "That's right. There's plenty of space there. What do you think?" I fell silent. I really respect my father-in-law and care about him a lot, but I couldn't just say, "Sure, no problem," and agree to something I've never done before. It's not that I don't care, but I have a job too. How could I suddenly take on the responsibility of caring for someone full-time? I racked my brain for the best solution, but no matter how much I thought, I couldn't find a good answer. Noticing my hesitation, Bob took my hand and looked me in the eye. "Linda, I need you. I know it's going to be tough because it's your first time, but if we leave everything to Mom, I'm worried she'll break down too." I replied, "It's going to be hard, but I have a job as well." "Linda, you can't quit your job. I handle our living expenses, so could you please focus on taking care of Mom and Dad?" "Quit my job?" I was shocked. "Yes, I'll earn the money and support you. That's why I need you. Our family needs you," Bob pleaded, even getting down on his knees. After thinking it over, I finally decided to quit my job and devote myself to caring for my father-in-law, just as Bob asked. A few days after we moved in, Bob suddenly announced, "I'm going to take over Dad's company and become the president." Even my father-in-law was surprised, but I could see he was secretly happy. With tears in his eyes, he said, "Bob, I can't believe you said that. After all this time of insisting you wouldn't work for my company." Bob replied, "Well, Dad, I've changed my mind. Seeing you like this, I can't just let the company go. I'll do my best." "Thank you, son. I was wondering what to do with the company. I thought I'd have to leave it to someone else, but if you're willing to take over, I'd be happy to pass it on." "I knew you'd say that, Dad. I promise to do my best for the employees and make it a good place to work." With that, Bob took over the company, and my father-in-law stepped down to become the chairman. Usually, a chairman has many responsibilities, but my father-in-law left everything to Bob, keeping just the title. 2 months have passed since Bob became president. Every day, he comes home past midnight. At first, I thought it was because he was adjusting to the new role and working hard, but coming home late every single night, something didn't seem right. What made me even more suspicious was the strange scent on Bob's clothes. One night, I couldn't sleep and stayed up, waiting for him. As the hours passed and he still didn't return, I began to feel uneasy. One night, I got up to get a glass of water from the kitchen and heard the front door open. I quickly went to the entrance and greeted my husband, saying, "Welcome home." But as soon as he came in, I noticed a strong scent of soap coming from him. When he saw me, he looked surprised. "What? Why are you up at this hour?" he asked. I couldn't sleep, Bob. You've been coming home late every night lately." "Well, I can't help it, can't I? I've taken over Dad's business, and there's a lot I don't know yet." "I see. It must be tough for you," I replied. "I'm tired. I'm going to bed," he said, trying to walk past me. But that strong soap smell hit me again. Without thinking, I grabbed his arm and asked in a firm voice, "Bob, who do you usually work overtime with?" "What? Why are you asking that out of nowhere?" he responded defensively. "It's just, I noticed an eye scent on you." "How should I know? I'm working hard every day, and you're questioning me about something so small," he snapped, looking more annoyed than I'd ever seen him. His irritated reaction only made me more suspicious. I wanted to ask more, but I didn't know how to push him without making things worse. Bob let out a sigh and said, "Seriously, can't you stop? I come home exhausted, and you start questioning me right away. It's not a nice welcome." "I didn't mean it that way. I was just curious," I tried to explain. "So, you're doubting me? We're able to live comfortably because I'm working hard every day. Do you get that?" "I do understand," I replied quietly. "Damn it, if you have time to talk about this nonsense, why don't you do some cleaning instead?" "I don't have time for this," he shouted and stormed upstairs, leaving me alone in the living room. When I peeked into the bedroom later, he was ignoring me, scrolling on his phone. Even when I tried to apologize, he kept pretending I wasn't there. The next morning, my mother-in-law confronted me, her face full of anger. "Linda, I heard you accused Bob of cheating yesterday," she snapped. "I didn't accuse him. I just asked who he was working overtime with," I explained. "That's suspicious enough. Do you even understand that you're able to live here comfortably because Bob is working hard?" "I know that, and I'm grateful. I just mentioned my concern, that's all." "How rude. What are you trying to achieve by making Bob uncomfortable? You're a terrible wife," she yelled. After shouting at me, she dumped all the house chores on me and left in a huff. My mother-in-law has never liked me. In front of my husband and father-in-law, she pretends to help with housework, but I'm the one doing everything. I also take care of my father-in-law every day. She often finds excuses to go out and only comes home in the evening. My father-in-law mostly stays in his room, so he doesn't know how little she's around. Sometimes people from the company come to visit him, but other than that, he barely leaves his room. My mother-in-law also told me not to share anything with my father-in-law or Bob, so I have no choice but to stay quiet and do all the housework and caregiving by myself. The only thing that keeps me going is my father-in-law. Whenever I help him, he looks at me sadly and says, "Linda, I'm sorry. You must hate taking care of an old man like me, right?" "Not at all. I think of you as my own father. It's an honor to help you. Hearing that makes me feel so grateful. I'm really glad that a wonderful person like you married Bob. And I'm happy to have a kind father-in-law like you, I replied with a smile. Even though my husband and mother-in-law often hurt me with their words and actions, my father-in-law's presence is what keeps me going. It's part of my routine to help him get ready for bed and turn off the lights when he's out. One night, I returned to the living room after putting him to bed. To my surprise, my husband was there with my mother-in-law. Even though he usually wasn't home at that time, he had a strange smirk on his face as if he'd been talking to her about something. I felt uneasy, and then my mother-in-law said something completely shocking. "Oh, perfect timing. I have something to tell you," my mother-in-law said. "I'll get straight to the point. You should take care of your father here for the rest of your life." "Mother-in-law, what are you talking about?" I asked, confused. "I've decided to live with my new daughter-in-law. Of course, Bob will come with me." New daughter-in-law. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What was she talking about? Why didn't Bob say anything? Just then, Bob pushed the divorce paper in front of me and said, "I have a girlfriend. My mom and I are going to move in with her. Whether you sign the papers or not is up to you, but you still have to take care of Dad." I felt my heart sink and I collapsed to the ground. Bob and his mother began packing their things, leaving me alone in the living room. Tears started falling silently when suddenly my father-in-law appeared in his wheelchair. "Linda, it's a bit noisy. What's going on? Why are you crying?" he asked with concern. I told him everything that happened. His expression hardened, and by the time I finished, his eyes were filled with determination. Then, something unexpected happened. My father-in-law stood up from his wheelchair. "Linda, it's time to fight back." "Huh, your legs," I stammered in shock. "Sorry for hiding it, but I've been able to walk for a while now. Don't worry, I'm going to handle everything. I've been preparing for this." He pulled out a large brown envelope from a drawer and showed me what was inside. There were various documents, evidence of Bob's cheating and, shockingly, proof of my mother-in-law's affair too. He explained that ever since Bob took over as president, he had some trustworthy employees monitor his activities. It turned out that Bob was leaving work on time every day, but not coming home until late. My father-in-law even hired a private detective to follow Bob and found out about his girlfriend. He also asked the detective to look into my mother-in-law, discovering her infidelity too. "What do you want to do, Linda?" he asked me gently. I want to get back at them." "I see. Leave it to me." My father-in-law made a phone call, and just a few days later, Bob was demoted from his CEO position. I submitted the divorce papers and demanded compensation from Bob and his girlfriend through a lawyer. A week later, Bob came to the house, furious and panicking. "Dad, what's going on? Just because I cheated, does that mean I should lose my position as CEO?" he shouted. "Shut up. You didn't care for me or Linda. You're not fit to be in a leadership position, let alone be my son anymore," my father-in-law replied sternly. "I'm cutting ties with you. Don't ever come back here again." But, Bob stuttered, falling to his knees in tears. He turned to me and begged desperately, "Linda, please, I'll break up with my girlfriend. Just don't go through with the divorce. Convince Dad for me." Even now, he was only thinking of himself. I looked at him, completely disgusted. "What are you talking about? Retract the divorce. I feel amazing being free from a horrible person like you. Why would I go back?" "But the divorce papers, I thought they were just a threat," he cried. "Nope, it's done. You got yourself fired and divorced. This is your own fault. You made these choices," I responded firmly. I threw him out the front door and could still hear him crying outside. "Help me. I was wrong. I won't cheat again. So please forgive me. Linda, Dad, don't abandon me." Neither my father-in-law nor I responded to his desperate pleas ever again. After the divorce, my ex-husband and mother-in-law were ordered to pay alimony. They were kicked out of the mistress' house because they broke up quickly and ended up with nowhere to go. They were so desperate that they had to live in a comic book cafe for a while. Bob paid me alimony, and his mother paid my father-in-law, which used up all their savings and put them in debt. And now, they're homeless, struggling to get by, and working small jobs just to survive. Meanwhile, I stayed at my father-in-law's house to take care of him. Even though I'm no longer married to Bob, he told me, "You're welcome to stay here as long as you want," which made me feel grateful. So, I decided to continue living in the house with him. Recently, my father-in-law started going to a daycare center during the day, so I began working during those hours. There will be challenges ahead, but no matter what happens, I want to keep doing my best to support my father-in-law.